Before paper money, value was, well, it was heavy and it was fragile. It was a weight you could actually feel in your hand, a real burden for any merchant who dreamed of trading across great distances. But then this one simple idea comes along and changes everything, a promise you could carry. So what actually gives any kind of money its value in the first place? Let's dig in.
For most of human history, the answer to that question was pretty straightforward, right? It was all about what the money was made of. Gold, silver, copper. You could bite it, you could weigh it, it had a real intrinsic worth. But yeah, that system had a major, and I mean literally heavy, drawback.
Okay, so picture this. You're a merchant back in ancient China. If you want to make a big purchase, you're not pulling out a wallet. No, you're hauling around these heavy strings of copper coins, all strung together through holes in the middle. It was just this clumsy, unwieldy system that was literally weighing down the entire Silk Road. Something had to give.
And you know what's cool? The change didn't come from the top down, not from some king or emperor. It came from the merchants on the ground. They were the ones who needed a better, lighter way to do business. And out of that simple need, well, an absolutely incredible invention was born. They called it flying cash, which is a great name, right? The idea was brilliant. Merchants could dump their heavy coins with a trusted agent in one city and get a paper certificate. Then they could travel light and cash in that certificate for actual coins at their destination. Now, it wasn't exactly money yet, but it was this revolutionary concept that a piece of paper could stand for money. And of course, the government saw this and thought, hey, that's a pretty genius idea. So by the Song Dynasty, they basically took over the whole system. They started licensing official deposit shops, and then boom, in 1023, they issued the world's first ever official government-backed paper money, the Jiaozi, a promise written down and made official. And this is a perfect example of that concept in action. This banknote from the later Ming Dynasty is a direct descendant of that original idea. I mean, just look at it. It's a real piece of history, right? An object that was worth a ton, not because the paper was special, but because of the immense power and, more importantly, the trust that stood behind it. But you can imagine, for someone who'd never seen anything like this before, it was a tough idea to wrap your head around. To an outsider, it probably looked like straight-up magic. And as it turns out, a very famous European traveler got to see this magic firsthand.
So when Marco Polo rolls up to the court of Kublai Khan back in the 13th century, he's just completely blown away. He sees the great Mongol emperor basically creating wealth out of thin air. It was a kind of financial tech that was centuries, literally centuries, ahead of anything back in Europe.
Polo actually wrote all about it. He described how the Khan's workers would strip bark from mulberry trees, mash it into this black paper, and just cut it up into money. For a guy who came from a world of gold and silver coins, this had to look like pure alchemy. But he also figured out the secret ingredient that made the whole thing work. And the secret, it wasn't magic at all. It was absolute, unquestionable authority. The paper had value because the state guaranteed it, and if you refused to take it, well, that was a death sentence. This whole idea, that money is valuable just because a government says it is, we now call that fiat currency. And get this, it's the foundation of pretty much every single modern economy on the entire planet. But of course, the second you make a simple piece of paper super valuable, what happens? Someone's going to try and fake it. And this kicked off one of the oldest arms races in history, the endless battle between the people making the money and the people trying to counterfeit it. And what's really fascinating is just how clever these early defenses were. We're talking special paper with unique fibers mixed in, 6 different colors of ink, incredibly complex printed designs, official stamps, seals. They even had signatures from multiple officials. These were not crude notes. They were basically the cutting-edge security documents of their day. And believe me, the stakes were as high as they could possibly be. For the government trying to protect its money, and for the forger trying to cheat the system, the price of getting it wrong was absolute. You got caught counterfeiting, that was it. Death penalty. But this amazing invention had a fatal flaw, a real Achilles heel. While the counterfeiters were a threat from the outside, the biggest danger actually came from the inside. It was the temptation for the government itself to just, print more promises to solve its problems. And if you look at history, you see this tragic cycle just repeat itself. The Song dynasty needed cash for wars, so they fired up the printing presses, and boom, prices shot through the roof. The Yuan dynasty did the exact same thing, leading to this crazy hyperinflation that just completely shattered public trust. It got so bad that the later Ming dynasty just gave up on the whole idea. They abandoned paper money completely and went back to using heavy silver for centuries.
Yeah, the story of the Yuan dynasty is a perfect case study. Kublai Khan, he starts off with this stable currency backed by silver, and it works great for over 50 years. But then, as the dynasty starts feeling the pressure, his successors just can't resist the temptation of the printing press. And that unleashed hyperinflation. And that's not just some boring economic term, okay? It's a social poison. It's when your life savings can become totally worthless overnight. That complete collapse in value didn't just break the economy, it shattered people's confidence and was a huge factor in bringing the entire dynasty crashing down. But look, this story from 1,000 years ago isn't just some dusty old history lesson. The journey of money didn't end there. The idea of a paper promise was just too powerful to go away. And its evolution, well, it continues right up to the digital money that's in your pocket, on your phone, right now. When you step back, what this whole story really shows is money slowly becoming less of a thing, you know? It went from being a heavy chunk of metal to a light paper promise, and now it's just an abstract digital blip on a screen. The form keeps changing, but that core idea of a promise, it's still there. Whether it's a number in your bank app or a credit card tap, it's really all just a high-tech version of that very first piece of flying cash. So money has been on this epic journey, hasn't it? From a physical object you could actually hold to a symbolic promise you could carry, and now to a totally invisible idea that just zips around the world at the speed of light. It's really a testament to the power of our shared belief. Because at the end of the day, money isn't metal, it isn't paper, it isn't even pixels. It's just confidence made visible. And all of that brings us to one final big thought. Those Chinese dynasties 1,000 years ago, they learned the hard way that when trust is gone, paper is just, well, it's just paper. Today, our money is more abstract, more invisible than it has ever been. And that leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? After 1,000 years of this experiment, is our trust in that invisible promise actually any stronger?